Welcome to Blackbriar Gaming. Over the next few weeks, Warhammer Community will be teasing us with Legion rule snippets from the upcoming release of the new edition. Today, we will be looking at the 5th Legion, the White Scars. Just a quick note before we get into it, as we're a new channel, a subscribe and a like really helps us reach a bigger audience. So if you enjoyed the video, please hit those buttons down below. The White Scars. White Scars, I would have to say, are in my top 3 of Loyalist legions, the other ones being the Space Wolves, see a bit of a theme there, and the Dark Angels, actually. But the White Scars are cool for a number of reasons. One, their narrative and their stories are just fantastic. If you've read the Horus Heresy White Scars novels, you know what I'm talking about. Really enjoyable characters, and really fun to have that savage character and that savage lore coming through in this futuristic, exciting world. And just the way they interact with the other legions is really interesting. That mistrust and that they feel like they're disrespected and whatnot and seen as savages. And that creates really interesting lore points and character points and stories within the Heresy novel series. So super fans of the White Scars for that reason. Their army build out and the way they fight war as well is quite unique and really interesting. So as I'm sure you're well aware, they love their bikes. They love going fast. So land speeders as well, jumping in transports, whether they be tracked or flying. The White Scars are all about maneuverability. And they've also got this really interesting piece around storm magic as well, and their librarians, and the fact they do not give them up after Nikeah. They are all about their librarians and calling down lightning to blast their foes. So look, they're doing their own thing. They're out there on the edges of the galaxy when the Heresy kicks off. So their story within the Heresy leading up to the Siege of Terra is all about kind of working out who to trust and who not to trust. Some really interesting battles with the Alpha Legion and all that secrecy piece that comes around it. The Khan himself, what a cool Primarch. Don't love all the Primarchs, love the Khan. And leading up to the Siege of Terra, they get involved, they get into the Siege of Terra, so this is a really good army if we do have 2nd edition Heresy focused towards that late Heresy era, the Siege of Terra, the Soul War, etc. White Scars are a really good army to be involved in that situation. So, big fans, love their lore, love the way they do their armies, love to see all those jet bikes in particular and land speeders and whatnot on the table. Their scheme with the white and red looks fantastic. Not easy to paint, but looks really nice. So, bunch of reasons to love the White Scars. But today, we're not here to talk about that. We are here to talk about their rules that we've had teased. So, another drop. Today, we get a Rite of War and we get a Warlord Trait. So, looking at the Rite of War first, Jagorian Brotherhood. It reads, Legion Skyhunter Squadrons and Legion Outrider Squadrons may be selected as troop choices in a detachment using this Rite of War, and such units gain the line unit subtype. Then it talks about how you can also select them as elite choices in case you run out of troop choices, but they don't get the line subtype. That line subtype, I'm assuming, is around claiming objectives. That's what we can assume, because that was kind of their thing, and being able to use their bike squadrons, their jet bike squadrons, to capture objectives would make a lot of sense. And then finally, the last piece of the Rite of War is that all models with the infantry unit type in a detachment using this Rite of War gain the outflank special rule. So very similar to what we had in 1st edition, but a little toned down. But I'll get into that in a second. No, you know what? I'll get into it now because we'll do them separately. So the Rite of War is almost identical to the 1st edition Rite of War. The main difference is that, and I could be wrong, I'm not a White Scars expert here. I'd stepped away from Heresy a little by the time White Scars came out with their full rule set. But the main one here is that they've lost hit and run. Now, it's good to see as GW comes up with 2nd edition and rebalances all the legions, that they're apparently not afraid to tone some of them down a little. White Scars are the perfect example of a legion that needed a bit of that toning down. They were really hard to play against on the table and could do some really sneaky stuff and make quite a negative play experience for the opponent, depending on, I guess, the build of their army and then what the opponent brought to the table. So losing hit and run, I'm not, even if I were a White Scar player, I guess I would respect that, because it just made your enemy's life really difficult. So they've toned this one down. And interestingly, when we'll jump into the Warlord Trait now, they've toned this down a little too, just in the way it worked for the army. So I believe it used to be an army special wide rule that pretty much everyone got Skilled Rider. Now, we don't know if that's not the case anymore. We don't know what a new version of Skilled Rider would do. There's so many unknowns, but the Warlord Trait reads, this Warlord and all models in the same army with the Legiones Astartes White Scars special rule and the Cavalry unit type ignore all the effects of difficult terrain and gain a 4+ invulnerable save against all wounds inflicted by failed dangerous terrain tests they are called upon to make. In addition, an army whose Warlord has this trait may make an additional reaction during the opponent's player's movement phase, as long as the Warlord has not been removed as a casualty. All right, a lot going on there. We see again at the end, we've got that extra reaction piece. I think we're going to see that in a lot of Warlord traits. It will be pretty common, I hope, and pretty popular too, because reactions are going to be huge. But going into the difficult terrain piece, so that's pretty standard, right? They're ignoring difficult terrain. You're on bikes. You don't want to be messing with a bunch of difficult terrain. It is only for people with the cavalry unit subtype, or type, I should say. So that will just be those bikers and people on jet bikes and whatnot. But the 4+ invulnerable save against dangerous terrain wounds that are taken, this is different. It used to be, the previous rules would just ignore dangerous terrain completely. Don't worry about it. You're a White Scar. You do not care. Once again, they've gone for that toned down piece in 2.0. And now, look, White Scars, pretty rare they're going to be losing models to dangerous terrain, noting they have to fail it, and then they've still got a 4+ invulnerable save. But it's not just the carte blanche, don't worry about dangerous terrain anymore. Makes decisions still... It means they're not completely ignoring the terrain, right? So it still leaves decision points for the player, which is nice. I'm okay with it, but it makes it quite unlikely that they're going to be flipping their bikes on a bit of rubble. So once again, nice and thematic, really nice and thematic rules. They suit what you want out of the White Scars, which is a whole bunch of bikes doing bike things and being able to do it no matter what the battlefield looks like, but not crazy powerful like we saw previously. Look, these hidden run rules and skilled riders whatnot may come out in other ways in the White Scars, but from what I can see here, what we've got in front of us compared to what I've seen previously from White Scar rules, a bit of a toning down and a bit of a rebalancing for one of the more powerful armies for Horus Heresy. So that's positive. It's great to see. It's not just what you see so often with GW is just making the new rules even more powerful than the last edition, just to build that hype. They're really trying to balance the legions, I think, and that's great to see. And that brings us to the end of our Heresy chats for today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about the White Scars rules in the comments. Make sure to keep rolling those dice and getting hyped for Heresy.